damage is done. It doesn't feel, I don't have to get surgery, I don't have to wear a mouth guard. So the process, something that your desire to become, like to not suffer like I did, has to be that intense for you to just drop everything and not care what other people think. Like I didn't care, okay, care what my family thinks, I'm not going to Rosh Hashanah dinner. I don't, you know, it has to be, you have to come first, completely. Amaya! Sorry. It's my niece, another role. Anyway, so essentially that desire for you not to suffer has to be so strong that everybody else comes second. I had to bring myself first.
When you do that, then they tell you you're selfish and you're this and you're that.
But that's the thing. The pure self can't care about that. The ego cares because you feel better than or less than. So in that moment when they're saying that, compassion needs to come up. I know it's hard to do that, but just be like, they don't understand. And if they don't understand, which maybe nobody will, that's not what's important. If you always try to please other people, you'll never please yourself. And at the end, you may be able to spend time with them, but this is where it becomes sometimes, I know family, you can't really get rid of them, but you know, sometimes you have to change your friends. You know what I mean? And that becomes like, wait, is this really my friend? Do they really have my best interest in mind, or do they not? And this is where, if it is a friend who's saying that, I would say question your friendship. If it's a family member, you just gotta accept them for who they are because they're gonna be there forever. You know, so it just becomes observing that process. Okay.
Was writing the book another portion of the therapy?
Well, you know what's funny is in high school I was told by English teachers that I was stupid and that I couldn't write. So it was therapy in the way that I mean, it seems like really stupid, but I carried that with me through college and still, you know, like where I visualized, I had like part of forgiveness, one of the steps is forgiving others, and I visualized the English teachers and I'm there, I'm like, I forgive you. You know, you didn't know that you were scarring a poor little girl who, you know, but at the same time I was able to surpass that, you know, so it was definitely therapy. The biggest therapy was actually just letting it come through me, like not trying to define the process, not trying to control the process. And that was, and observing the fact how going through the case studies and doing it with people and seeing that we're all the same. We're all the same people, we're all the same. I don't care what you're wearing, I don't care what you look like, I don't care if you're short, tall, fat, skinny, we're all the same. And that was like, I didn't even know that was going to happen. And that was a huge gift that I received from the process itself. Yeah.
I think I'm hearing from you today is really a combination of those two words, detachment and acceptance.
And I would say unattachment, or non-attachment, or instead of detachment. Detachment, I understand, it's probably the same thing, but detachment is more of like, I'm going to pull away from you, like I'm going to detach, where non-attachment is just, there's nothing to pull away from, it just is. And absolutely, acceptance and non-attachment is what I had to cultivate a lot of, but mostly with myself. The one thing that I had to learn about myself first and foremost was love myself, accept myself. My history, I mean, this is where it becomes the belief system and the vicious cycle. You know, if this is me right now, here today, you guys here today, anything before this moment is my history, right? Once upon a time, Rena was born in Venezuela, da 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 da. And what do they say about history?
Repeats itself.
Ah, good. Thank you for reading my mind. History repeats itself, and that's exactly what it was, right? I would go to not to feel the rejection. I would go to the boys, over and over again, until I became conscious of it and I stopped it. I still accepted that about myself. I said, okay, that's who I was. That's what I had to deal with, and that's what I needed to do in order to be here today. And I had to forgive myself, and that was hard, right? Because then you think of like, realistically, like a lot of boys that I hurt their feelings and all that stuff, although it was unconscious and unintentional, I still have to take responsibility for that and say, I was unconscious, but it was my responsibility and I'm sorry. Not that I called them all up and said this, no, right? It was more of an inner process. Now it's like, oh really, do you want to go out again? No. But this is part of the process of really me, like, forgiving myself. So you're absolutely right.
Did you ever try and compare your program with the Course in Miracles or Alcoholics Anonymous 12 Steps?
Honestly, I don't know them. I didn't take the Course in Miracles, and I've only been to one NA meeting, which was very inspiring. I went with a friend who also had a problem. But it was first 12 steps, and I changed it to 15, which because it needed to be 15, but it was also because I was like, okay, I don't want people to think it's a 12 steps. But I don't know what those are. I mean, so I don't know. I never compared it, and I purposely didn't want to. I just wanted it to be the process through which I went, not what I didn't want to get influenced by what they thought. You know what I mean?
Don't you think that people, expectations cause them suffering? Shouldn't expectations be, elimination of expectations be one of the things?
Absolutely. What are expectations? Who drives expectations? Ego or pure self?
Ego.
Ego. So this is an equation that I write, and hopefully it'll get impregnated in your mind. Expectations equals disappointment.
Is this all in the book?
These
All of
little
it?
drawings, no. The explanation, yes. I mean,
Okay.
for the most part, what's happened is that it's evolved through time. But yeah, expectations equals disappointment. Anytime you have an expectation, someone's gonna get you something and you don't get, or like gifts. Opening gifts is like the worst, right? You're like, right? It's horrible. So if you're just able to embrace it for what it is and let them exactly, like, oh, I really wanted that whatever, and you didn't get it, you're going to be disappointed, right? But if you just embrace it for what it is, a person had a gesture, even though maybe they gave you 2 different color pairs of socks, whatever, right? It really devalues your own self, and you actually, yes, you feel a lot of unhappiness, right? Anytime you have an expectation, right? Oh, like tonight, I was like, oh, I don't know how many people are going to show up. It's Good Friday. No one's going to come. Whatever. And yay, right? But regardless, I didn't have an expectation. If you come in with an open, open book, open mind, without the past thoughts, judgments, ego, like right now, if you guys would remove any judgments you had, your mind would be clear. You would just be absorbing information. You would be open, right? But right now, while you're sitting there, you're processing what I'm saying, you're thinking, you're judging me, whatever you're doing, you're creating your own little impressions of thoughts in your head. Evaluating. Do I trust her? Do I like her? I don't know. But my ego, or my pure self says, I don't care, right? I really want to be able, if this helps, great. If it doesn't help, great. It's not meant for you. No big deal. Truly.
Has it ever occurred to you that if your father would have been closer to you and available, you may not have had all those consequential things and you might not have been here now?
Absolutely. And so I'm grateful that my father did what he had to do, because everything happens for a reason. I love you, Daddy. But yes, that's absolutely true.
Well, but she made a lot of boys happy when she was
She wasn't so sad about it.
Right. It was funny.
But he brought up a good point. That doesn't break you, it makes you better.
Absolutely. But that's the thing, is that once you get understanding and consciousness, he was just doing what he needed to do. And so it becomes, everything happens for a reason. And it was my karma to have that father, that mother, that sister, that everything that happens is because it's meant to happen to me. And so if I can learn from that and grow from it, great. If I don't, I'm just going to be like victim, life sucks, whatever. I'm just going to keep reacting, and then I don't have control over my life, right? Things that happen in my life is because I've allowed myself to have the spatial awareness to make it happen. It's not because this is what I want to happen, but because I'm aware and open, right? If I'm here open and present with you guys, I'm going to be effective, and I'm going to be able to communicate and connect. But if I'm thinking about, I got to check my email, I got to check Facebook, or whatever I got to do, then I'm not going to be here with you guys. And then I'm not going to be productive, and nothing's going to happen, right? It's just going to be more clutter in my head. And then it's not going to be effective. Yeah.
How many years did it take you to come up with all of this? Like growth and...
Well, I mean, I want to say many lifetimes before. But in terms of, I started yoga about 12 years ago. I was introduced to the world of yoga 12 years ago, and previously to that, I didn't believe in God. I didn't have a religion. I wasn't raised in any denomination. But as soon as I got into yoga and read the Yoga Sutras, I just I'm like, this is just common sense. This is amazing. Like I just knew it made sense. And so I definitely feel that there's a predisposition to that. You know, whether or not you believe in reincarnation doesn't matter. But I do, and so, you know, I do think it's from many lifetimes before, but from, I would say 12 years ago that I first started the first step of and I'm 31 now, so when I was 19, if I can add correctly. But yeah, so that's when I started yoga. But I really understood that, I have understood now that yoga is not just a physical practice. So that's the whole point, is that, you know, we do yoga, and in the West it's like, oh, look at the cool handstand I can do, which I'm totally trying to do that too. But you know, all these different poses that we do thinking that it's yoga, and if it doesn't get you any closer to yourself, then it doesn't work. And so I kind of like to call it more like, what's your yoga? Like, what makes you bring yourself closer to yourself and to your pure self, not to your expectations, to your pure self. And that is what yoga would be for you. So, you know, I'm very grateful to it, and I don't know where I would be today, literally, if it wasn't for yoga. Because yoga works however it needs to work for you. I mean, it's not a strict, like, this is the only path. There are, just as there are many people in this world, that's how many paths there are. So, just, you know, accept it, non-attachment, and then you can go from there. No. Good question. Thank you. You don't have to know anything about yoga to read a book, because I actually go, the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali are like, you know, without turning people off religiously, like the Bible of yoga. It's not, it just has the different teachings that take you through the principles and the practice of the mental aspects and not the physical aspects, but the mental aspects and the emotional and, you know, the spiritual aspects. So I basically my whole book is a practical guide to that. Hola, Amaya. And so it's meant to, you don't have to know one thing about yoga, because I make it very conversational and easy for you to understand in terms of the Yoga Sutras, and I don't go too much in depth. If after reading my book you're really intrigued, I highly recommend you read the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali, translated by Swami Satchidananda.
Yoga Sutras
of Patanjali. Steve, do you have that here? Probably. Okay. It's a blue cover with an Indian man sitting on a rock in the Ganges River. And so yeah. So, but it's meant to be for all. Yeah. Any other questions? We're going over.
Have you seen, like, with your friends, maybe that you used your book with your friends or showed it to them before it was published, and like seen a difference with any of your friends or people, you know, have you, before you published, like?
And I always tell people, and we actually have a sign-in sheet if you want to be part of our newsletter, or, you know, we send out information. If you want to give us your information, you know, I'm always open to answer questions. If you email me or call me and you're having a problem with a step, it's for you guys. So if you have a question, you can always ask, and I'm more than happy to.
You know, I think once you get over your initial shyness and fear of speaking in front of people, you'll be fine. Thank you everybody so much for coming. Of course, the book is for sale at the counter out there. She's going to be signing right over here.